enjoy the show.
Happy New Year, everyone. Before we begin, I wanted to give you a special introduction from our president, real Donald Trump.
Well, I'm at the White House working. You're out there partying tonight, but I don't blame you. Enjoy yourselves. We're going to have a great year. Have a really, really happy New Year.
Thank you, Mr. President. We appreciate all you do. And I have one other tweet from Donald Trump that I wanted to go over. He says Mexico is paying for the wall through the many billions of dollars a year that the USA is saving through the new trade deal, the USMCA, that will replace the horrendous NAFTA trade deal, which has so badly hurt our country. Mexico and Canada will also thrive. Good for all. And he's right. Whether they are paying for it directly or indirectly, we have the money for the wall now. Okay? Not to say we didn't have the money before, but for the Democrats listening, for Nancy Pelosi, for Chuck Schumer, we have the money for the wall, so let's build it. Now, let's get into the news. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Red Pill 78. I am the Corruption Detector, and this is your Red Pill News. Tonight, I wanted to cover a very interesting thread I found from Loki Sullivan. This is about Hillary's election salvage program. Now, there's a lot of inflammatory things in here, and I thought, in keeping with the spirit of the Hillary Clinton non-indictment that came out just the other day, I wanted to cover this. Because I can't verify the legitimacy of this document, but, you know, I've seen it covered a couple different places, and it was a couple years ago, but this brought it back into my attention here with Loki's tweet. This is something that was produced apparently just before the election in 2016, and it's entitled Hillary's Election Salvage Program. The document states that Hillary Clinton's favorability ratings have dropped to historic lows, 12%. And this is a document from the Benson Strategy Group, which is a real organization. And it also has a heading with the Clinton Foundation. It appears that they claim to have interviewed over 2,000 adult Americans between October 10th and 13th of 2016. The statistics are sound. The numbers are realistic to me. So this is something that very well could have happened. But I haven't ever seen anybody come forward and say that they actually took part in this survey. Executive overview. Hillary Clinton flash crash to 12% favorable, losing 19 to 77% nationally. Now, we know that this is probably what actually took place. And it says, at this point, Donald Trump has both momentum and enthusiasm. Distrust in the mainstream media is blunting the impact of the collective polling narrative. As Election Day approaches, Hillary Clinton's favorability ratings have crashed to historic lows in nonpartisans, and Donald Trump is consolidating support. Identifying respondents are either enthusiastic or very enthusiastic about voting for Trump. So this is all, exactly how it went down. People saw Hillary Clinton, they saw what she was doing, and they knew that she was sick. At this point, Donald Trump has both enthusiasm and momentum. Again, saying distrust in the mainstream media is blunting the impact of that collective polling narrative. We knew that those polls were not correct. We knew that something was amiss. Voters are aware of bust-in voting, false face operations, dead man's party registration drives. This may necessitate severe strategy changes for November. Now, this is the thing that kind of got my attention. It's kind of like a perfect storm of the things that we know to be true, but I find it just very difficult to imagine these people talking about it in such open terms. I mean, unless they are just so brazen. I mean, and like Q said, they never thought she would lose. Part 2 of the Salvage Program says Clinton's collapse in both soft and hard support was steady and pronounced after the first debate. At this point, Donald Trump has both momentum and enthusiasm. So this is Clinton support from different dates, and they're showing that basically her support is dwindling and it's collapsing. So these are likelihood of people to vote for Hillary Clinton or not. Hillary's election salvage program, part 3. Hillary is widely considered sick, untrustworthy, and most Hillary-leaning Democrats would vote to replace her. Again, very, very believable. And I guess, looking at it, this is a big report, and for people to have just put this together without actual data to support it, I don't know. I mean, they've thought these things out quite well. Question 13, Democratic leaning. If possible, you would swap Hillary Clinton for, only 8% of the people would keep Hillary Clinton, 31% would swap her for Jill Stein, 17% for Bernie Sanders, 28% for Joe Biden, 4% for Julian Assange, 2% for Edward Snowden, 3% for John Edwards, and 7% not sure. And here we are with that information laid out. Question 14. Hillary Clinton suffers from what ailment? Nothing, 21%. Pneumonia, 18%. Brain cancer, 16%. Dementia, 16%. Parkinson's, 10%. Question 15. According to WikiLeaks emails, Hillary hates everyday people. 52% responded yes. 15% responded no. 33% responded not sure. Hillary's election salvage program, part 4. Trump voters are virtually unstoppable. We cannot be stopped. Question 19. What events could stop you from voting? Hillary supporters, none, 45%. Trump supporters, none, 90%. We are the strongest. Question 20. What events could stop you from voting? Hillary supporters, active riots, 40%. Natural disaster, 23%. Smallpox, 22%. Threat of war, 14%. Question 20. What events could stop you from voting among Trump supporters? None, 74%. Natural disaster, 5%. Smallpox, 16%. And threat of war, only 3%. Question 21. What events could stop you from voting among Trump supporters? Attack by extraterrestrials, 38%. External invading force, 23%. None, 17%. Biblical event, 16%. Hillary's election salvage program, part 5. Non-recommended salvage options. Red Dawn, Cobalt Rain, is that BL, Black Lives Riot? Zika Apocalypse, Sharia escalation, unnatural disaster. Red Dawn, support is too widespread. While a Red Dawn scenario using UN forces and Canadian border infill would be effective in shutting down northern voting, it would simply delay the inevitable and result in hardening support for Mr. Trump. Cobalt Rain. The public has been primed for radiological attack and stockpiles have been positioned, but while physiological impact of a CO-60 weapon is severe, the threshold of opportunity may have passed for this to stop a vote. Black Lives Riots. Again, while staged civil unrest could prevent pockets of America from voting, the damage is too widespread. Zika Apocalypse. Notice nobody's talking about Zika anymore. Improved strains of Zika virus have been delivered and we have disseminated them to operatives. Unfortunately, this will suppress women voters more than men. This will hurt Hillary Clinton and Trump voters are willing to risk lethal pathogens to vote. Hoorah. Sharia escalation. States have blocked key immigrant operatives. Without the required Muslim Islamist population in place, the IE plan will not be sufficiently impactful. Unnatural disaster. HARP is in skeleton crew mode. Subterranean thermostatic devices in fracking mines are untested. Surveys suggest this might not stop Trump voters. Hillary's election salvage program, part 6. Recommended salvage, fire sign. For almost 2 decades, the Department of Defense and NASA have coordinated on a black book project under the codename Fire Sign. Fire Sign's aim is to create a religious something effect in enemy populations to create an instantaneous psychological soft kill object mission. The operation uses high-powered lasers to project real-seeming images on the sodium layer 100 kilometers above the surface. These images can cover hundreds or even thousands of square miles and can appear completely real, three-dimensional, and can move. These visual cues are augmented with pulsed ELF electromagnetic emissions, see Project Sanguine, that attack the specific areas of the prefrontal cortex that are stimulated during religious experience. In limited tests, subjects have been able to be overwhelmed on both axis of vastness and overwhelming of the subject's frame of reference, and a powerful need for accommodation. The mix of these two will produce inaction, lack of focus on self or individual interaction, and gross transformation in mental equilibrium. A Road to Damascus experience. All right, and we're going to check out Project Sanguine. The Department of Defense and NASA have coordinated on a black book project under the codename Firesign. We're going to look into that. Firesign's aim is to create a religious awe effect in enemy populations to create an instantaneous soft kill. The operation uses high-powered lasers to project real-seeming images on the sodium layer 100 kilometers above the surface. These images can cover hundreds or even thousands of square miles and can appear completely real, three-dimensional, and can move. Hillary's Election Salvage Program, Part 7. The ability to produce these effects across 23% of the continental United States is the objective of Firesign. The Firesign scenario is that of an invading extraterrestrial force of nearly The Firesign scenario is that of an invading extraterrestrial force of nearly incompressible scale. Massive floating cities descending, God-sized walkers among the clouds, and terrifying weapons, wheels of fire and eyes, etc. I know this is a little blurry, guys, but that's how it looks in the tweet. I mean, this all looks sound, you know, like this is an actual thing that they're planning on doing. This phenomenon, when acted, will bring electoral and social systems to a halt, and in affected areas will permit a narrative wherein POTUS, Obama, is able to call a halt to the invasion and then hand over the torch to Clinton, providing a basic continuity of state. Very interesting. I asked for the source, but they didn't know what the actual source was. Let's go see if we can find anything about it. All right. Now, I do have another article about this, fleshed out a little bit more. This is from Dr. Michael Salla on exopolitics.org. It says, leaked document recommends false flag alien invasion to save the Clinton campaign. A document released by the Benson Strategy Group on behalf of the Clinton Foundation reveals that Hillary's presidential campaign is in dire straits due to mistrust over mainstream media coverage and polling. The document's analyses a number of salvage scenarios and recommends one called Firesign, which is a false flag extraterrestrial invasion using advanced holographic technology. The 7-page document is titled Salvage Program, was written less than a week ago, and was leaked by Anonymous on October 18th in a video and later made available through its Before It's News website, which has a questionable reputation for releasing accurate information. So is the document genuine? The Benson Strategy Group itself describes itself as a strategic research consultancy that marries language expertise with innovative research to frame choices so that your brand is the only answer. The document is headed by logos for both the Benson Strategy Group and the Clinton Foundation. Benson Strategy Group has worked with the Clinton Foundation in the past to conduct internal polling, as Fox News reported in an October 16th story about WikiLeaks. Joel Benenson, founder of the group, is currently the chief strategist for Hillary Clinton's 2016 presidential campaign. Here is what is further known about him. The CEO of Benenson Strategy Group, a strategic consulting firm, and serves as a communications and polling advisor to the Obama White House. He has been a strategist for U.S. senators, governors, and mayors, as well as Fortune 500 companies. He was a pollster for the DCCC in 2006 when the Democrats won back the majority in the House of Representatives. Benenson is also the co-founder of iModerate Research Technologies. In January 2015, Hillary Clinton hired Benenson and Robbie Mook as strategists. The Salvage Program document uses internal polling data from a survey of 2,021 adult Americans. It goes over the respective strengths and weaknesses of the Clinton and Trump presidential campaigns and paints a dire scenario for the Clinton campaign, despite mainstream media fixation on allegations of Trump groping women. The document begins its executive overview with the following. At this point, Donald Trump has both momentum and enthusiasm. And this is something we've already gone over, so we're going to skip this. One of the most damning statements in the document is the following. On a disturbing note, some 70% of Republican-leaning voters are aware of bust-in voting, false face operations, and dead man's party registration drives. This may necessitate severe strategy changes in November. This is supported by alternative media reports that Hillary's campaign rallies are poorly attended and that it is plausible that large numbers needed to be bussed in order to provide the illusion of popular enthusiasm. The document goes on to analyze a number of aspects of the internal polling data, most of which is bad news for the Clinton campaign. It concludes that Trump voters are virtually unstoppable and that the public has lost faith in polling, which is viewed as a propaganda tool, as the following extract shows. I trust polling to provide an accurate overview of the race, only 11%, provide a general point-in-time assessment, 13%, provide pro-Democrat propaganda, 56%, be damaged, misleading, or absurd, 14%, and not sure or other at 6%. The Benenson document further reveals that mainstream liberal media has lost much legitimacy and that people are increasingly turning to social media for their information, as the following diagram reveals. For an accurate view of the race, I trust Fox News, 6%, broadcast news, 5%, cable news, 2%, TV or newspaper analysis, 2%, social media, 31%, my gut instincts, 21%, Donald Trump, 29%, Hillary Clinton, 1%, not sure, 3%. To remedy the situation, the document analyzes a number of salvage options. It begins with a non-recommended list, which contains a number of very alarming false flag scenarios, including a Red Dawn foreign invasion, a Cobalt Rain radiological attack, civil unrest, Zika virus, etc. The recommended salvage option is Firesign, which uses holographic technology to create a religious awe effect, as the following extract illustrates. And it goes back into the information we went over in the thread. Many elements in the salvage document appear to be based on an accurate analysis of prospects of the Clinton campaign succeeding as distrust in mainstream media and polling reaches unprecedented heights. The Firesign technology has been well known to many UFO exopolitics researchers who over several decades have described it as Project Bluebeam. Nevertheless, there are a number of issues with the document that raise doubt about its authenticity, according to the popular blog author Kulupaleli. These include the document using an old 2012 logo for the Berenson Strategic Group and an incorrect street address being used for its Washington office. These discrepancies may be indicative of a hoax or included in order to introduce plausible deniability in case of any unintended leak. While it is possible that the Salvage Program document is an elaborate hoax, it is also very possible that a majority of the information in it is genuine. If so, then Clinton's presidential campaign may ultimately rely on a false flag extraterrestrial invasion, which might be a factor in why she and her campaign chair, John Podesta, have repeatedly raised the UFO issue during the election campaign. All right, now for those who don't know, Project Bluebeam is a conspiracy theory that claims NASA is attempting to implement a New Age religion with the Antichrist at its head to start a new world order via a technology simulated Second Coming. The allegations were first presented in 1994 by a Quebec journalist and conspiracy theorist, Serge Monast, and later published in his book, also called Project Bluebeam. Proponents of the theory allege that Monast and another unnamed journalist both died of heart attacks in 1996, but they were in fact assassinated, and that the Canadian government kidnapped Monast's daughter in an effort to dissuade him from investigating Project Bluebeam. I've heard about this for years. And this document talking about Project Firesign is the first documentation that I've seen to suggest that it's an actual project and that it would, perhaps exist. But we know that the government has other projects that they have put into place, such as, the ELF technology, which they were talking about under Project Sanguine. And I did find some documentation, an article from the New York Times back from 1973. In this article, they're talking about Project Sanguine is set back again. It had been originally worked on in like the 50s and 60s, and then it was apparently scrapped. But it uses electromagnetic frequencies. Basically, the article goes on to say the Navy's controversial Project Sanguine, a $1 billion underground radio transmitting system for sending messages to missile submarines, has received still another setback. Driven out of Wisconsin under a swarm of political and technical arguments and met with hostility in Texas and Michigan, the project has now been ordered terminated by the House Appropriations Committee. Such a termination by the committee still must be approved by the full House of Representatives and the Senate. In the past, many projects wiped out by one arm of Congress have been replaced by another and have been subjects for bargaining. The huge system would cover 1,250 square miles with antennas buried 6 feet deep in a checkerboard fashion. Each of the squares would be 7 miles long on one side. Environmentalists have opposed it, saying not enough is known about the effects of sending huge amounts of electricity through the ground. Others have questioned it on practical grounds. They have said it can be jammed like any other radio station and has too limited a use since it can only send messages and not receive them. Purposes of the system. Critics also contend that by operating in the 45 to 60 cycler per second range is too slow and clumsy. One study predicted it would take 1.7 hours to send a 12-letter message over the system. The Navy contends the project is vital to national security in that it allows communication with deep-running, fast submarines of the Polaris and Poseidon types. The signal penetrates deeper in the water than the conventional Navy long-wave radio systems. Its purpose is to provide backup system for sending presidential order in order to fire in case of nuclear war. After a long series of protests in Wisconsin, Melvin R. Laird, then Secretary of Defense, ordered it out of the state as one of his last acts before leaving the Pentagon in January. The former Wisconsin congressman is now President Nixon's domestic affairs advisor. The Navy then concentrated on gaining approval in Llano, Texas, about 70 miles northwest of Austin, on several western counties in Michigan's Upper Peninsula, which adjoins Wisconsin. Congressional sources say the move to Texas, where opposition welled up strongly, may have been a death blow for the project. Representative George H. Mahone, Democrat of Texas, is the influential chairman of the House Appropriations Committee. Recommended. The committee's report on the Defense Department budget, which was released yesterday, recommended cutting out the entire $16.7 million budget requested for Sanguine and stated that the committee directs that this program be terminated. It noted that hearings on Sanguine had shown the 6 communication systems were already in use for communicating with submerged submarines, with other new systems under development. The Navy would be well advised to pursue other means of communicating with submerged submarines which do not involve the political and technical difficulties which beset Sanguine, the report stated. The project has been alive for 10 years and at one time was so highly classified that newspaper clippings on the subject were stamped secret. Experimental facilities were built in both northern Wisconsin and in North Carolina. Senator Gaylor Nelson, Democrat of Wisconsin, has been fighting the project for 5 years. The expenditure of $57 million for development of Project Sanguine has been a tragic waste of the taxpayers' money, he said in a statement yesterday. He said the decision to scrap the project should have been made several years ago when serious objections were first raised. Well, what do we know? We know that the technologies talked about in the report on Loki's tweet here are real. And we know that the people who supposedly created the report, the Benenson Group, was a real strategic service that was used by Hillary Clinton and that they were major players in the Clinton campaign. Now, is this just disinformation that's being put out there to confuse people, to get them to look at it and to have people ridiculed because they're saying, look, we have evidence here that this is real stuff. People are out there trying to put, images of aliens and images of, the second coming of Christ into the sky. I don't know. It could be any of those things. But basically, I am very confident in saying that I'm super happy that Hillary Clinton lost the election. I am super happy that Donald Trump is our president. And I really, really hope that something like this never has a chance to come to pass, because the actual, ideas talked about in this document, they resonate with me. The data resonates with me. The polling resonates with me. And everything that they discuss legitimately seems to me like something that a person like Hillary Clinton could propose putting out there. Well, I want to thank everyone for joining me, and thank you so much for tuning in. If you have any questions about this or anything else, please leave it in the comments below. I will try to get to it. I have a couple of moderators, and hopefully they can help out. Thank you, everyone, for making this year an incredible, amazing time for me and for all of us. Donald Trump is truly saving our country, and if it weren't for him, we might have something like an attack by fake extraterrestrials brought to us by Hillary Clinton. Have a happy new year, everyone. Good luck, and God bless.